We're going to jump right in. We're looking at Romans, and we're in the section 6 through 8. But I decided to take a detour, not a detour, but slow down and dig into chapter 7, and specifically looking at verses 13 through 25. And I mentioned before that this is probably one of the hardest chapters in the book, and maybe even in the Bible. And there's a lot of reason for that. Most of the reason is because we've heard so many weird ideas, conflicting ideas on it in the religious world, whether you realize it or not. If you've heard many people talk about faith or Calvinism or, inherited sin, that kind of thing, you probably heard them talking about this. And we've even had some of it in the church where people have taught, not that they believe in inherited sin, but where we use this passage to explain why we sin. And that is that we can't really help it because we focus in on the part that says, I'm doing what I don't want to do. And there is some truth to that in the sense that when we sin, we don't really necessarily want to, but then again, why would we do it if we didn't want to do it? And so that's a logical explanation for some of these passages, but when you look into the verses themselves in the context, it really makes it difficult to understand the rest of the passage if you see it that way, because there's some things in this, if you look at it from that perspective, there's some things in here that can't be true, and we'll see them as we go through, or that at the very least can be very dangerous for us to be involved in. So having said that, we're going to look at a few words in the original language to help us get familiarized with some of the things that's going on in the text. And then I have 23 questions. We generally make about 12. So I'm going to be kind of going quick through this. I didn't want to do it as a lecture. So the alternative was to try to make questions where we can answer the questions and still get the gist of what's going on. Hopefully this is going to work. So I won't be here next week. Next week is singing anyway, so I think. Anyway. Is it? Not yet? I wonder if I found somebody to teach class. Hold on. No, it's too early for that, isn't it? Well, might have singing anyway. I don't know if I can get somebody to teach or not. Let's go ahead and have a prayer so we can get started. Father, thank you for all that you've done for us, for allowing us to be together tonight to study your word. Help us, Father, as we go through, that we can understand you, understand ourselves. As we talk about sin and its effect on us, help us to have a healthy appreciation for what it takes to be found righteous, and that is to recognize the gift that your Son gave to us and giving his life for us so that we can be freed from sin and its effects. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. Okay, so a few words just to start. There's 5 words here that's listed, and you don't have to know Greek to know what the meanings are. We just looked up the meanings, but what I did was, this is not because I sat down and studied the words out, but someone gave me the indication that the 3 different words that are found here have different meanings and different nuances. So I looked up the words in a concordance, and I just looked at how they were generally translated, and so we kind of get the gist of what they're talking about. That's an easy way to do it. And most of the time, there may be some discrepancies with one word translated here and there, but if you get the general gist of every time you see it, it's translated in a certain way. It gives you some ideas about it. The first one is the word katergazomai, which means to work, prepare, or to do. All of these 3 words, the first 3 words, all can be translated do. And that's pretty strange, but it's important to recognize it, and he uses all 3 words in different ways in this section. That's why I'm bringing it up. And the focus seems to be, when you use that word, it seems to be mostly a focus on what's accomplished. I'm doing something, right? I'm thinking about the end product. That's the idea of saying when I do something, I accomplish it. The next one is poieo, which means to do, to make, or work. And the focus seems to be on the process of an accomplishment. So if I'm talking about raking the yard, I'm talking about raking the yard, I'm actually talking about the process of the raking. Or with the first word, I would be talking about the completion of it. I raked the yard, and that's two differences. One is an end result, and the other one is a process. And the third one is proso, which means to do or to practice. And there really aren't any nuances that I could see. Most commonly, it's translated just word practice or do. So just keep that in mind. It's used once in here. The next two words are related to the text, and one of them is thelo, which is used a lot. I mean, it's the word means will or want. The things that I want to do, that's the idea, it's thelo. And that's generally what it means. It can mean that you want to do something, or it can mean that you decide to do, you will something into existence. So it has to do with desire and things like that. And then the last one is meseo, which means to hate. And that's an important word. The word hate in the Bible does not necessarily mean disgust or a feeling of extreme anger towards someone. A lot of times the Bible uses the word hate as simply a matter of decision between one and another. So when Jesus said that you need to love, love Him and hate your family, it doesn't mean that you literally hate them, right? So He uses the word in a different way, and the word is used often that way, especially when talking about God. Jacob I loved and Esau I have hated is one of the verses related to that. That doesn't mean that God has animosity toward Esau or the descendants of Esau, actually is what that's about. It has everything to do with He chose one over the other. And in that sense, He hated Esau, and He's talking about the descendants. So anyway, that's the idea, and the word is used here in the same sense I think we have to understand it that way. All right, let's read through verses 13 through 25, and then we'll look at the questions real quick. Has then what is good become death to me? Certainly not. But sin, that it might appear sin, was producing death in me through what is good, so that sin, through the commandment, might become exceedingly sinful. For we know that the law is spiritual, but I am carnal, sold under sin. For what I am doing I do not understand. For what I will to do, that I do not practice. But what I hate, that I do. If then I do what I will not to do, I agree with the law that it is good. But now it is no longer I who do it, but sin that dwells in me. For I know that in me, that is in my flesh, nothing good dwells. For to will is present with me, but how to perform what is good I do not find. For the good that I will to do, I do not do. But the evil I will not to do, that I practice. Now if I do what I will not to do, it is no longer I who do it, but sin that dwells in me. I find then a law that evil is present with me, the one who wills to do good. For I delight in the law of God according to the inward man. But I see another law in my members, warring against the law of my mind and bringing me into captivity to the law of sin, which is in my members. O wretched man that I am, who will deliver me from this body of death? I thank God through Jesus Christ our Lord. So then with the mind I myself serve the law of God, but with the flesh, the law of sin. Okay. So, first question, verse 13. How does the law make sin worse? And how does this relate to Eve in the garden? That might help you, thinking about Eve might help you figure out how to answer this question. In what way does the law make sin worse?
The temptation of being told not to do something that may make people want to do it more.
Okay, it's a possibility that because you are told no, that means that you're going to want it even more. And that's similar to that's not always the case. I think there's more to it, but I think that is part of it. But it's all underlying. There's something underlying that's going to be true. Yeah.
I guess our minds want to go to, we're missing out on it.
Okay, we're missing out on it. That's exactly what Eve was told, right? And she started doubting God because of that. So think about this for a second. Which is worse, for you to flippantly and not even realize that you're doing something, you make a mistake, and you keep going on with life, or to realize something is wrong, to think about it for a long period of time and do it anyway? That's a lot worse. Isn't that what Eve did? It wasn't she just passed along and happened to grab a fruit and, oh, it happened to be the wrong one. Oh, no. It was Satan made her look at it and study it and think about it and convince herself to go ahead and eat it anyway. What was it that convinced her to eat it? It looked good. All the other arguments involved. I see plenty of men with boats that would say for men too, but maybe she was hungry. There were a lot of other ones. Yes, she wanted to be as wise. Now, let's talk about her intentions. Did she intend for it to be good? Yes. She wanted to be like God. She didn't realize she was already like God, made in His image. But, yeah, okay. That's going to come up. Yeah, that was pretty bad, too.
She continued it on. If it just happened to her, that'd been okay, maybe. I mean, she could have repented of it, I guess, but the thing is that she took it on to her husband, and he did it too.
Yeah, that's true. And that's life. Yep, that's right. So she's questioning God's character, questioning God's judgment. Why would He give me this and tell me not to? Well, He put it right here and then told me not to eat it. It doesn't make any sense. So she started being suspicious. That's what we do with sin. Oh, some of the things we've never considered doing, if we get in the right circumstances, we might go, well, why would that be so bad after all? Why would we do that? That's the nature of it. So sin, taking advantage of the law, made it even worse, because now we've actually thought through it and said and convinced ourselves that this is the right thing to do. I don't know anyone that except for on rare occasions, that would intentionally look at something and say, you know, this is the worst possible thing I could do for my life. I'm going to go ahead and do it. We don't think that way. We think, well, I know it could be really bad, but I think we can probably avoid the consequences, right? And it'll be so much better if we can get away with it. That's how we think. Anyway. All right, so what does it mean then, he says in verse 14, the law is spiritual. What does that mean? God, it's based on the nature of God, yeah. All right. Okay. Yeah, it transcends the physical. Yeah, that's good. Any other thought? I was thinking through this myself, and the answer that I came up with is our spirit is what controls our body, or that's the ideal. That's what we should be doing. Why don't animals have a law? Well, that's true, and there's no... Yeah, but that's true. There's no way that they can have... There's no connection between mind and body, so to speak. They react based on environment, right? Now, that doesn't mean that they can't do tricks and things like this, but they don't have a soul like we do. We have the spiritual realm, and the spiritual realm is not some metaphysical thing where you see glowy things floating around. This is your spiritual realm up here, and our brain is what separates us. So it's not just that, but that's the biggest part of it. So the intention is that, and the focus is that the law is spiritual directions that control a physical environment. And that's what it's about. If you didn't have your bodies, what sin would you commit? I don't know how it would work. But everything that we do that's sin is from our bodies. That's how it works. So in our realm, this is where we are. And that's what it's talking about, being spiritual. So how could he say in verse 14, I am carnal, if he's a Christian? Sold under sin. That gives you a hint. We have a dualistic nature. Yeah, that's true. But is it a generally considered a good thing in the Bible if you're called carnal? No, not at all. Yeah, Isaac? I'm of the flesh. Okay, and even that is not considered a good thing. I think this is coming into, there's a lot of discussion about what kind of time frame Paul is talking about. And in my understanding, the way I see this, and I may be wrong, he's talking about in first person about what it's outside of Christ, what life is like. This is what it's like. I'm carnal, sold under sin. He's already talked about that fact. In fact, in chapter 6, he said that you're a slave to the things that you obey, right? Whether it's righteousness or evil. So now he's considering a situation where he was once before, and he says, we'll talk about that in a minute, but he is considering what it's like outside of Christ. And the whole point of this is to show that the law cannot save us. The only thing that can save us is Jesus. And that's his last point in this chapter. That's his last verse. So anyway, it's Jesus who can save us. So outside of that, this is where he is. So I'm carnal. So I take it as that. You can disagree with me, and that's fine. But anybody have any other comment? Yeah. True. I don't think that I can see the point. I don't know if that actually is what he's saying here, because he says he's sold into sin, and we're not sold into sin. We've been freed from sin. But I mean, you're right. We all have sin. We have it in our lives. We face it. Yeah. Yeah. True, but we're not sold under sin. We're not sold into sin. We were, but we've been ransomed, is the idea. So yeah, I'm not arguing the fact, but I think that he's saying a little bit more than that here. It's a little bit broader than that maybe. But okay, so look in verse 15. What I'm doing, I do not understand. What I will to do, that I do not practice. But what I hate, that's what I do. This is one of the key verses that makes it difficult. Where it says doing, or the ESV says actions, that's in the first part of this. The things that I'm doing, the things, however I'm acting, that is the idea of, that's the word katargazomai. And that means the things that I'm accomplishing, right? So if you put the word accomplishing in there, the things that for what I'm accomplishing, I do not understand. It makes it a little bit easier to get the concept of what he's saying here instead of things that I'm doing I don't understand. What is it that he doesn't understand? Read it. The difference is the word understand is not there. Does ESV have understand? I don't understand my action. Yeah. And the word is knowledge, to know. So I guess that's why they translate it that way. It's a realization of information. So in some ways it's a full understanding of something, or a process of gaining more information. So if we're looking at it in a sense, I'm not sure what translation was that one? Oh. The work that we're doing, he says, can you read that first part again? I know not. Okay, so that's where the knowledge comes in. All right, so even with that, what does it mean to know not? It means you don't know, right? Okay, so The spiritual will be the things that he wants to do. And that middle part, for what I will to do, he says, I don't do that. What is it that he's actually doing? Right. What he's accomplishing? Exactly. That's the point. Yeah. I do not acknowledge. Okay, that's another way of looking at it, I guess. So that which I work, that which I accomplish, I do not know. I don't acknowledge. I don't understand what's happening. Another way of saying this then is I don't know, I don't understand the end result of what I'm doing. I know what I want to do, right? But how does he say in that? But the thing that I hate is what I end up doing, right? So the word hate and the idea of knowledge are the same thing. That he doesn't know what he's accomplishing is what he hates, right? So what could it be that he's accomplishing by doing the things that he knows the opposite of what he should be doing? True. Yep. All right. As we go through, you'll see even more how this answers to that. In verse 16, if then I do what I will not to do, I agree with the law. The law is good, but no longer I who do it, but sin that dwells in me. So look at verse 15. The things I want to do, I'm not doing, but I'm thinking the things that I hate, I'm doing. What is it related to? Sin. What is the result of sin? What's the accomplishment of sin? Death. So on one hand, he wants something, that's why he sinned to begin with, but what he's getting is he didn't realize what he's getting. But he's getting what? Death. Because why? The wages of sin is death. All right, so that's something, like I said, it's difficult to get to grasp. I realize that. But he doesn't understand what's happening when he does it. Why is it that people, we've already kind of discussed this, why is it that people sin? Because they think they're going to get something different. What do they end up getting when they sin? Not what they're wanting. It's the opposite. And the thing that I hate, all right? So what would that thing that he hates, the things that he doesn't actually want, what does that relate to? The consequences of sin, right? So a sin, do people sin because they want to? I mean, how many times has it been the case that somebody put a gun to your head and said sin? Even then, you still have a choice, right? So we do what we want to do, and the reason we're doing is because we think that either we're going to get around the justice that's supposed to be there, or God doesn't know what he's talking about, so we can do it anyway. And what I was wanting is not what I'm accomplishing. And what I'm accomplishing is death. What I was wanting was what? Life. A better life, a better way to live, that kind of thing. All right? So look at verse 15. It says, what I am doing there in the middle, what I will to do, that I do not practice, but what I hate, that I do. It's poeo. It means that I'm practicing this, or I'm in the process of doing this. So the hatred comes in here. The things that he hates, that's the things he was choosing against. But he's actually doing them. He's actually accomplishing them. And in fact, by practice, it's becoming closer and closer to that point. So the idea here is not that he is, as I see it, is not that he is doing something that he can't help doing, except for the fact that he can't help the end result of it, right? Because the wages of sin is death. All right, we'll see that a little bit more as we go on. Number 7 here, what is it that he doesn't want but finds himself working to achieve? That's kind of a summary. His own actions are doing the work toward it, yeah, but what's he achieving? What's he achieving? Think about it. He's sold under sin. The things he wants to accomplish, he's not doing. The things that doesn't want to do, he is accomplishing. What would that be? Sin and its consequences, death. He wanted to do the sin, but he didn't want the consequences of it, right? So those things, I mean, it's hard to separate sin from death, but there is a process, and we find ourselves working more and more toward that. You know what that implies? One sin leads to another, doesn't it? I mean, almost inevitably. And so you find yourself working against yourself because one thing, and we've heard the stories of the lengths that people will go to avoid the consequences of getting caught for their first sin. They do sin after sin after sin. And so, politicians do this all the time. They get into some kind of compromising situation, and they start doing worse and worse things just to hide the thing that they originally did. And I guess humans do that in general. All right, let's look at verse 16. If then I do what I will not to do, I agree with the law that it is good. All right, so he says, if then I do, that's poeo, that's a process. If I am in the process of doing the things that I don't want to do, I agree with the law that it is good. How does doing those things find agreement with the law that it is good? How does accomplishing my own death show that the law is good? It reveals the standard. Yeah. If sooner or later you're going down this path and you start realizing, if I would have just done right the first time, I wouldn't be in this mess, right? We agree that I should have done differently. All of us have been there. So now I'm headed toward this end result, and I don't want to go there, but this is where I'm heading. And everything I do to try to fix it is getting worse and worse. It's just pushing me toward this end, because you remember the process that James talked about? First, you have the desire for sin. We're tempted to do evil, to sin, and then what does it do? It grows, and when it grows up to maturity, we sin, and then we die. So these things it's a process that we go through. I think he's dealing with that in here. So we can agree. All right, number 9, verse 17. But now it is no longer I who do it, but sin that dwells in me. Now, this is the key verse to me that shows that you've got to shift your thinking a little bit about this. It's not, if it were the fact that he's talking about just some random sin, and I say, well, I'm not doing it, sin does it, sin's the one doing it. The Gnostics taught that. They believed that your spirit was holy and your flesh was evil. So anytime you sinned, it wasn't you doing it was your flesh doing it, and that made it okay. Because your body doesn't matter. Your spirit is what matters. Now, obviously, the Bible doesn't teach that. And Paul's not teaching that, but some people have used it to say, well, I'm not doing it, it's my body. That's certainly not right. Yes, we're not thinking it through. We're not thinking correctly, that's for sure. Yeah. Okay, so in verse 17, he says, it's not, but now it is no longer I who does it. The word there is katergazomai, which means it's not I who accomplishes this, but sin. Sin accomplishes this, not me. I'm not doing it. Sin is. Okay? What is the it here? If he's not the one accomplishing it, but sin is the one that's bringing it to fruition, what is the it? Death. Because the wages of sin is death. So it's doing it. Now, if you think about it, put that that thought into here. I'm not the one who's accomplishing death. Sin is. Still going to die. It's sin that's doing it, though. It's the sin that's causing me to die. It's not because I'm pursuing it myself. It's that I've sinned. I'm going to die. There's no choice. I have no way of getting out of it. all right? So that's the idea of what we're trying to accomplish, or what sin is trying to accomplish in us. Sin isn't trying to accomplish more sin. Sin is trying to kill you. It's bringing you to death. That's the idea, all right? Then verse 18, I know that in me, that is in my flesh, nothing good dwells, all right? Now, people have come here and said, that's the reason we can't help but sin, because I don't have anything good in me. That's not what he's saying here. We have to modify it by the next part of this verse, which says, for to will is present with me, but how to perform what is good I do not find. Okay, so even if we take it on a surface level, I want to do what's right. Why is it that I'm not doing it? It's not because I'm evil. It's because what? What does he say there? I don't know how. Right? I don't know how to perform it. I want to do this. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to perform it. Everything I've tried to do this has led me to death because I've made the wrong decisions and the wrong choices. I've been duped. And now I'm struggling that way, and my body's fighting against me. I want to be here, but I'm going that way, right? The second half of that verse really defines the first half. When he says there's nothing good in me, he's not saying that we're all evil inside. He's saying that we don't know how to do good, right? And there's a difference in saying those two things. It's very different ideas. How to perform it. Yes. Yeah. I want to do it, yeah. But it's not there, and I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to accomplish it. So if on one hand we have death is the thing that he doesn't want, that he hates, that he's trying to choose against, and ended up choosing for because he was duped, what is the thing that he wants? If the thing he hates is death, what is the thing that he wants? Life. A righteousness with God, right? Isn't that what we all want? We want to be right with God. We want to have things go well in life. We want a good life, and that would be a spiritual, holy life. So I want those kinds of things. I just don't know how. I don't know how to do it. There's a lot of truth there too. A lot of other things we could say. So he wants to accomplish life. Number 12, if Paul knowingly accomplished death, what is it that he wants to accomplish instead? Life. Unknowingly. How did Paul, where did I get the idea that Paul would unknowingly do this? Head toward death. That's the point that he's been making, right? That sin deceived him, taking advantage of the law, and tricked him into doing something that he knew was wrong, but he looked at it like Eve did with that fruit and said, maybe it's not so bad after all. And then once you do it, what happens? You've been duped. Now you're heading toward death. And it's just a matter of time on that. So he is unknowingly chosen to go toward death. He didn't want that. It's not what he was looking for, but he found it. It's the opposite of what he's looking for. Right. So that's basic. That's really what he's talking about in here. It's as clearly or as concisely as I can put it. If one does not want to practice it, why would you still do it? And think about this one. It depends on what you're asking, on what it is. There's some things that we're forced into that we have no choice in the matter. I'm not talking about sin. But once we sin, what choice do we have for getting out of that? Yes. Without Jesus, there is no choice. That's his point. So in the carnal world, in the physical world, once you sin, it's leading to death. You can't do anything about it. There's nothing that you can do to change it. So that's the thing that he's practicing, so to speak. And remember, it's not him anymore. He made the one decision, but now sin is taken over, and he is living this life of sin, of just waiting for death. It's pushing him more and more toward it. All right, let's see here. Look at verse 20. Now, if I do what I will not to do, it is no longer I who do it, but sin that dwells in me. All right, so that if you think about it from this, what we've been talking about, sin is accomplishing death in me because I was tricked. Sin took advantage of me by the law, showed me the law very clearly, and tricked me into thinking I could do it anyway, and I did it. And now it's pushing me toward more and more towards sin. If I'm busy doing this, it's no longer I who am doing it, but sin that dwells in me. So the sin is the issue, right? The sin is what's pushing us toward death, or pulling us toward death, or whatever. Verse 21, I find then a law. And here's a big part of what he's trying to say. I find here a law. Evil is present with me, the one who wills to do good. Evil does not have to be sin. Evil is maliciousness, or it's poor choices, wrong choices. And of course, those things would be sin. But what do you think he's trying to say there? What is the law that Paul wants us to see in this verse? I want to do good, but what's the law? There's evil there. And it's preventing me. I don't know how to do good. I don't know how to get out of it. I don't know how to fix this. Because when you sin, you die. And then he says in verse 22, I delight in the law of God according to the inward man. Go back to verse 16. If then I do what I will not to do, I agree with the law that it's good. So I agree with the law that it's good. Verse 22, I delight in the law of God according to the inward man. I recognize and appreciate, even a person on death row can appreciate the fact that there are laws that if he would have obeyed them, he would have been okay. We can appreciate the fact that there is a standard. Even if we're not following the standard, we can know that the standard exists. So I think that's what he's talking about. I delight in the law of God according to the inward man. Inside me, my thinking process, right? I want to do this. I want to be here, but where am I? I'm over here because of the choices that I made, right? And the consequences of those choices. It keeps coming worse and worse. All right, verse 23. He says, but I see another law in my members. All right. For one, he's talking about he wants to do good. And here is another law that he mentions. Verse 23, warring against the law of my mind. The law of my mind is what? This is the idea that I want to do what is right. I want to be right with God. I want to have the fulfilling life that God promised to us, that he gave to us. But I have something else warring against me. What is it warring against me? In fact, bringing me into captivity to the law of sin, which is in my members. What is it that's warring against him? So his spiritual law is him wanting to do what is right. And sin and its processes are warring against him. They're fighting against him. One, in one hand, brings life. On the other hand, brings what? Death. That's where the battle's taking place. And the battleground is here because we have those dual parts. We have the spirit and we have the flesh. And sin wants you to die. So it's pulling you that way. And you really have no choice in the matter of your consequences when you sin. I mean, so we've talked about this before. If you were not a Christian and you decided, I'm going to make a change, and I'm going to live from now on perfectly, and you actually pull it off, you never make a mistake again for the rest of your life, does that change your past? Does that affect your sin? No. You still have it. And the only way only hope that you have outside of Christ, the only thing you have is an expectation of what? death. That's all you can expect, because that's what God does to sinners. He puts them to death. And so in verse 23, he's saying that. And then verse 24, he's kind of driving to the point, wretched man that I am, who will deliver me from this body of death? See? This body of death. I'm dying. And it's sin. It's taken me there. Sin is a big part. I mean, it's central to it. But he's talking in generic terms about what the process of sin does. It fights against us. It causes us. It doesn't matter what we do. We try to be better and try to be, get rid of the sin and the guilt, and there's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do. People have invented all kinds of things. I don't know if you remember that, but I don't know, about 10 years ago or so, there was some psychologist that got a lot of hot water because he had this rebirth process that actually either injured someone or killed them. And he put them in this, or she put this person in this fake womb and had her birthed again because she was going to be reborn. And the symbolism was supposed to make a huge impact on her psyche. And she ended up either being hurt really bad or killed in the process. Why did she do that? Because we're always trying to invent ways to fix our past, right? But the only way to fix it is go to God. So he says, wretched man that I am, who will deliver me from this body of death? And then verse 25, I thank God through Jesus Christ our Lord. So then with the mind I myself serve the law of God, but with the flesh the law of sin. And I believe here he's given us a choice. We can serve the law of sin, or we can serve the flesh, or we can serve in our spirit. And he's been talking about this. Chapter 6 was all about that decision to become new, right, through baptism, becoming a slave to righteousness instead of a slave to sin. Chapter 7, he's saying the same thing. In chapter 8, he's going to say the same thing. We have the Spirit of God, so why wouldn't we walk in the Spirit and not walk in the flesh, that kind of thing. So this is how it all relates. Now, I want to encourage y'all to go through these questions and think through them. We covered in 45 minutes what took me hours to try to think through and understand. So I don't expect y'all to get this the first time. And it took me a lot of hours over the years of trying to figure this out. And I still don't know how to explain it all quite like I want to. But if you want to talk about it, you have any questions, please let me know. Is that the first bell? Or the second? First bell? Anybody have any questions or comments? Yeah.
Because you said a lot of words tonight, I don't even know if you're there, but would you have a way to sum up 13 through 25 in one statement?
Why would you ask me such a question? She wants me to summarize it in one sentence, which is what I tell everybody when they're trying to do lessons, is to put it in one sentence. So just throw it back on me. Yeah, that could be it. I think most of it is talking about. It could be a summary of an explanation of verse 11. Sin taking occasion by the commandment deceived me, and by it killed me. That could be an explanation of verse 11 because it's expounding on how that process works. How does sin actually kill somebody? I mean, that could be part of it too. But his point really is in verse 25 that we have a choice, and that's why he's talking about it, because he's talking. Remember the first question in verse 6? Wouldn't we just continue to sin so that grace would abound? He's giving reasons why you don't do that. And one of them is because with the flesh, we die, and with the spirit, we live. Any other questions? I hope that helps. No, that's a good question, actually. Well, thank y'all for your participation. I know this is a rough one, but let's talk if you have any questions.